Okay, for this next section, we're going to stick with the minor pentatonic scale, but dissect it a little bit more so that we can really utilise all of the positions and cover the whole neck and not be confined to playing in just the box shapes. We can get a little bit more linear, moving in and out of position. Moving all over the neck as opposed to just sticking around the chord shape. I use the chord shape as a basis because I always want to be aware where my root note is for reference, and also, as we've already seen, if we change key at any point. Now, the way that I practiced these scales was on pairs of strings across the whole neck. I also practiced them on just one string at a time as well. But it became kind of clear to me that there were basically three shapes that I should be aware of, or four shapes, four finger shapes that I should be aware of. The first one was a whole tone apart, which is this. The next one was a tone and a half. The other one was, I can't remember which is which, but is either a forward or reversal trapezoid, which I know that sounds a bit odd, which is basically a shape where it's like that at one end and like that at the other end. So it's slanted there. And if we look at this position, you can see that here. On the E and the B, we play on the same fret, but on the G and the B up here, we have this kind of slanted shape where we've got whole tone, tone and a half. If we go in the next position, we have the reverse of that shape, so, and then across the two strings together. Now that might seem a little weird, but basically it means that I can play across the strings and also repeat these shapes in octaves. If ever I start in the A minor pentatonic on a D note, I know it's going to be an E next, and then on the adjacent string, it'll be the same shape, G and A. So if I find another D note, there we go, and it's always the same shape of just being a whole tone apart. The only point that changes is when we play between the G and the B string, because the G and the B are tuned in thirds, whereas all the other strings are tuned to fourth. So with that in mind, if I start on a D note there, I have to just shift the shape up a semitone, but I still keep the same whole tone pattern. That's a really handy little thing to practice, starting from Ds and playing that same pattern everywhere. You've got to shift it there because of the tuning. And we can just keep going until I run out of neck. The next shape is the minor third shape, which was the tone and a half. So if I ever start on an E, I always know that I have a tone and a half on the B string, tone and a half on the top E. So let's start on all the E's. Still keep the tone and a half shape, but obviously shift it on the B string. Remember what I said about that. We don't go, you can hear it's wrong. Missed one there. Okay, the other shape, the other position would be starting on the G note, G and A, and C and D. That's the same as our first shape. It's just a whole tone. So let's start on all the Gs. Obviously on the G and the B there, I've got a shift. Okay, a lot of the fingerboard covered there. Let's look at our first kind of trapezoid shape, which is going to be this one here. Whenever we play an A, we'll have a minor third on above the A, which will be the C note. But on the next string, we'll have a whole tone. So we have I don't know whether that's the forward or reverse trapezoid, I can never remember. Okay, let's start on A notes and move that around. So, start from here, sorry. And the other version, which is the opposite to that, is if I start on a C note, I'll have C and D, which is a whole tone, and then on the adjacent string, I'll have E and G, which is a tone and a half, and that's where we get that reverse of our previous shape. So there, it's on the adjacent fret, it's the same, on the adjacent string, it's the same fret. On the adjacent string there, we shift back a semitone. The next shape up, on the adjacent string, we shift back a semitone. The next position, it's across the same fret position. So let's start from C notes now. So we get this. And if I start on this C note, it's quite easy there. It's still the same distance, but we stay in exactly the same position. Where did we get to? So we got another C here. Oops. And here. Now, I've covered a hell of a lot of the neck there, and what I'm now going to do for you is start from the C note on the first fret of the B string, and I'm going to play all the way up the minor pentatonic on just those two strings. Here we go. Having trouble getting my finger in that fret. Now we're going to start on the A note and play up on the G and the B strings. Now the D and the G. The A and the D. Sorry. And our final group of strings, which is the E and the A. Okay, so that's really broken our scale up and has enabled us to move, you know, in a more linear fashion as opposed to in box shapes. The cool thing about this idea is that we can really trace things in octaves as well. I might have this little phrase, G, A, C, D. You can see how now I've moved across the neck as opposed to staying, you know, confined to a shape. I'm still aware of that, that, and that. Those three chord shapes at all time, but it just enables me to you know, break out of the box and cover much larger areas of the fingerboard.